Welcome to Paranormal Nightshift, your ultimate destination for everything that goes bump in the dark. This is where your spine-tingling fan stories take center stage, and tonight we've got a chilling tale for you. Today's story comes from Kayla, and it's titled Oliver. But before we dive in, have you ever wondered what it'd be like to travel through time and face the paranormal head-on? You can find out in The Birth of Dimensional Desperado, the first ebook in the new series that's already captivating readers. It's yours for free at paranormalnightshift.com. Now, dim the lights, settle in, and let's step into the world of the unknown. Let me take you back to where it all began, a consignment shop in Georgia run by my mum. For years, the store was her pride and joy, a place filled with treasures and oddities that people brought in to sell. One of our regular sellers, a distant cousin of ours, was a picker, a real-life version of those guys you see on American Pickers. He had a knack for finding things tucked away in barns, sheds, and forgotten corners of the world. One day he came across an old wooden chest in a decrepit barn. Dusty, weather-beaten, but somehow still intriguing. He told us the owner of the barn had struck a deal with him. He could have the chest, but only if he agreed to take whatever was inside. It was a strange stipulation, but my cousin, always up for a bargain, agreed without hesitation. He didn't open it right away, though. Instead, he brought it to my mum's shop, thinking it might be something she'd want to add to her collection. When my mum saw the chest, she loved it immediately. It had a rustic charm that would fit perfectly with her decor at home. Naturally, my cousin made her the same deal the barn owner had made him. The chest was hers, but she had to take whatever was inside. Together they opened it, probably expecting some old trinkets or maybe forgotten keepsakes. What they found was far more unsettling. Inside the chest was an antique ventriloquist dummy. Its paint was chipped, its mouth moved on hinges that creaked ominously, and its faded clothes hung limp and lifeless. If you've ever seen one of those creepy dolls in a horror movie, you can picture it. My mum, with her dark sense of humor, immediately named him Oliver, and just like that, Oliver became part of our lives. For the first few months, Oliver sat in the back office of the store. Occasionally, someone would come across him while looking for inventory or supplies. The reactions were always the same: nervous laughter, uneasy glances, and comments like, "It feels like he's watching me." My mum found it hilarious. Me, not so much. Fast forward a year. By then, my best friend and I had opened a store of our own in an old downtown building with 1860s brick walls and a long storied past. It had once been a boarding house by the train tracks, and you could feel the history in every creak of the floorboards. It wasn't a comforting kind of history, though. The place had a heavy atmosphere, the kind that made you avoid being there alone. When my mum offered to let us adopt Oliver, we laughed and said, sure, why not? He became a fixture in our stockroom, sitting in the corner where we stashed extra merchandise. At first, he was just a creepy conversation piece. Some of our employees hated being near him, claiming they could feel him watching. My friend and I dismissed their complaints, chalking it up to imagination. But then Oliver started moving. The first time it happened, we assumed one of us had done it as a joke. He'd be in a slightly different spot, maybe turned a little, or shifted just enough to notice. We didn't think much of it. After it happened a few more times, we made a pact. If either of us moved him, we had to tell the other. No pranks, no lies. And for a while, things settled down. Sometimes we'd catch him in a new position, but one of us would always fess up to moving him. Until that night. It was winter and we were closing up late. The stockroom was pitch black, so we always turned the lights off together and used our phone flashlights to navigate to the back door. That night, we left out the back as usual, locking up and saying good night before heading to our cars. The next morning, we came in through the front door and went to the stockroom to grab some supplies. That's when we saw him. Oliver was sitting upright at the foot of the steps leading to the back door, staring straight ahead. His usual spot, where we always kept him, was about 15 feet away. Neither of us had moved him. We stared at each other, wide-eyed, trying to figure out who was messing with whom. "Did you do this?" my friend asked, her voice shaky. "Number, did you?" "No." We checked the alarm system, but there were no notifications of doors opening, only 2 alerts. Movement detected. Our cameras only recorded when motion was triggered, but when we reviewed the footage, we saw nothing. No one moving him. No explanation. That was the moment things changed. The uneasiness we'd felt before became something darker. I started refusing to be in the store alone. On nights when I had to wait for my husband to pick me up, I'd keep every light on and stand outside in the cold rather than be in there with Oliver. Even my friend, who'd always been skeptical, admitted she felt the same. We closed the store last year, and when we packed everything up, Oliver came home with me. He sits on a shelf in my living room now, overlooking the space like some kind of silent sentinel. He hasn't moved since. Maybe it's the change in location, or maybe the building we were in had something to do with it. Sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, I think I see his head shift, but I always tell myself it's just my imagination. Still, I can't shake the feeling that Oliver didn't like the old store any more than we did. Maybe the history of that place unsettled him too. Or maybe, just maybe, he's waiting for the right moment to remind me he's still watching. With that being said, Kayla, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been a thrilling ride, and we truly appreciate you being part of Paranormal Nightshift. Now, if you've got a story of your own that you'd like to share, don't hesitate to submit it right here on Paranormal Nightshift. We're always on the lookout for more incredible experiences to feature on the show. Before we wrap up, let me remind you how you can support the podcast and take your Paranormal Nightshift experience to the next level. By joining our Patreon, you'll enjoy an ad-free experience, get access to episodes a week early, and unlock exclusive perks like all future journeys of the Dimensional Desperado ebook series. It's the ultimate way to dive deeper into the world of the unexplained. If Patreon isn't your style, no worries. You can still support the show by subscribing to the podcast on Spotify or YouTube. And while you're there, drop us a comment to let us know what you thought about this episode. Your feedback means the world to us. Oh, and don't forget to visit paranormalnightshift.com to claim your free copy of the first ebook in the Dimensional Desperado series, The Birth of Dimensional Desperado. It's a great way to kickstart your journey into the supernatural tales we're so passionate about. Thanks for tuning in to Paranormal Nightshift. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep those stories coming. We'll see you on the next episode.